Welcome to Fit Strong Women Over 50, Episode 50. Hi, I'm Jill.
And I'm Chris. We're really excited about this episode, aren't we, Jill?
We are. You know what's special about it?
It's number 50.
Yep. 50 for women over 50. I wanted to tell you something.
What's that?
So today I was at my boot camp class, and there is a young woman in the class whose name is Ellie.
Oh my gosh.
She's very fit, and we've talked a couple of times in the past, but I said to her today, I hadn't seen her in quite a while, I said, "Your name is Ellie, right?" And she said, "Yes." And she said, and I said, "My name's Jill." I said, "I can remember your name. I have a website and podcast." And I explained the whole thing about Ellie beating Thor, and she's looking at me like, she said, "That is so cool." She's like high-fiving me.
Now, by any chance, is she over 50?
No, she's very young.
Okay.
She said, "I'm going to listen to your podcast." And I said, "Well, it is for women over 50, but it is still interesting. You might enjoy it." So it was just sort of like on our break. But it was just, she was so excited when I was telling her about Ellie beating Thor.
Well, it is pretty cool. And, I think I know there are younger women that listen to our podcast as well as some men that listen to it. So it's not like we want to screen everyone out, but, you and I noticed when we were doing our training for the half marathons that really there's nothing out there for women over 50 that is, there's a few things, but we really felt like we wanted a community where we could encourage each other. And so I'm so pleased. We're at number 50. I mean, most podcasts don't get past 7,
So that's great. It's episode 50, and I feel like that's a landmark for us.
Well, it's kind of ironic because I didn't actually decide to get fit, lose weight. I had gained a lot of weight in my 30s and 40s. And I didn't decide to do that until I did turn 50. And I went to the doctor with the idea that he was going to talk to me about, getting a colonoscopy, because that seems like that's what happens when you're 50. But instead he said, you really need to lose weight, and was very serious about it. And, the next day I started, and gosh, I'm about to be 63. So, I think, it works and it's possible, and I think that's kind of why we're here, is to encourage other people. Now, Jill, when you have a story about when you decided to lose weight as well.
So, there's always multiple things that make you realize that you're gaining weight or you weigh a bit too much. You're not at a healthy weight. But I was working, and I went to the company Christmas party, and somebody took a photo of the group, and I was at the end of the table, so I was front and center in this photograph. And then they put it up on the website for the world to see. And when I looked at that photo, I thought, oh my goodness, I look so bloated and overweight, and I did not look healthy. It was a shock. Sometimes things jar you, and that was it for me. And I really started focusing on trying to get in shape, lose some weight, be fit and strong. Sometimes it just takes something to be a little out of the ordinary to shake you up a bit and make you realize that, you actually are in not as great a shape as you could be.
Well, to me, it happened over a long time, of just gaining a few ounces each month, like not even gaining a pound here and a pound there. But, when time goes by and you don't even notice, and then the next thing you know, it does tend to add up. And I also noticed too, the more weight I gained, the less I felt like exercising. I mean, it just seemed like a huge, huge ordeal, and not something that I'd like to do. And it was amazing that once the weight came off, how much more I enjoyed doing it. And now I think of, gosh, if I had to carry around dumbbells that weighed the difference, I couldn't do it. I guess I was strong just because I was constantly carrying all that weight, but not strong in the way that I wanted to be.
Right. So there's a lot of health things that go on with all of that. So I know in my 40s and right around turning 50, that's when your doctor, it's just like you said, my doctor, I don't know that my doctor told me to lose weight per se, but I was started to have health, the numbers weren't good.
Mm-hmm, sure.
You go through a period in probably in your 40s where you're raising children, if you have kids, or you're focusing on your career, everything, you're just so busy. And it's hard to take care of yourself.
Isn't that the truth?
Yeah. Somebody just told me that there was a study and they said in developed worlds, people, the happiness quotient, when people start to be happy again was basically at age 47.2. Maybe it was 48.2, but right around that time. And that's all of a sudden. So it's sort of an interesting thing how many women hit that age. It doesn't have to be exactly 50, but hit that age. And suddenly it's like, I'm going to start taking care of myself. I want to get fit. Now, not everyone does that, but it's a sort of an interesting phenomena, I think.
Yeah, it's a new focus.
Yeah.
The other thing that I noticed after I did lose the weight is that there weren't a lot of support information on the internet or that type of thing for women my age. And you and I got involved because we were on a team together running the Akron Marathon. We did that for a couple years.
Right, the relay race.
We started sharing ideas back and forth about, staying fit and that type of thing. And it just kind of evolved into the Becoming Ellie podcast and website and our community and all, which is really cool.
Yeah, I think so. The other thing is that, there's lots of information out there about weight loss. Not all of it is accurate and not all of it is useful, but there is a lot of information.
Well, that's
There's
true.
a lot less about maintaining weight loss. So
absolutely.
And I think that's one thing that most people agree on is that it is a different process to keep the weight off than it is to lose it.
Yes.
It's just a different challenge, I think. Losing weight is one thing, but keeping it off is a different thing.
Yeah, and that's what we thought we'd focus on this 50th episode of the Fit Strong Women Over 50 podcast is maintaining a weight loss, particularly for women over 50.
You do a good job of keeping the extra weight off. You seem to. So I'm sort of curious as to how you do that. Is there how do you eat? Do you eat in a particular way? Do you eat anything that shows up?
Well, I'd have to say there isn't one single thing. It's a variety, a whole lot of things. But as far as eating, I do try to eat breakfast every morning because I wake up hungry. My stomach's growling.
Oh, okay.
And I really love to have protein in the morning because that holds me over very well into lunch. And, I've talked about having eggs. I've given up a lot of my yolks and give them to my dog so that I don't end up with high cholesterol. But I do love to have eggs because I feel like they're a great source of protein.
Yeah, they are.
The other thing that I'd say, if I just had to pick a couple things, is I eat a ton of vegetables. I have my cart in the produce aisle is just packed full of vegetables, whether they're roasted or raw or salads or in sort of a casserole mixture. But I just really go crazy over vegetables. So those are two things that I do for my eating. How about you? What do you do to keep your weight off? Do you eat a certain way?
I pretty much eat, I want to say everything, but I don't think that's quite true. So if I go out to a restaurant, I may eat a piece of bread, but I really try to avoid, I don't eat much bread. I eat very little pasta. I don't eat a lot of, so I eat carbs. I don't want to say I don't eat carbs because I eat a lot of vegetables. I do eat sweet potatoes. I will eat regular potatoes too, but I really try to stay away from pastas and bread.
So you eat low grain, complex carbs.
Yeah, that's it. So I had a doctor, so when I really started down this path of losing weight and all that, I went to a program and the doctor there said, we feed grains to animals to make them gain weight. She said, so I challenge you to try just going without them for a while and see what happens.
So is it the gluten in the grains? Is that what it is that does it?
I don't think so. Gluten is a different issue.
Okay.
So most grains are processed so that they're a pretty simple carbohydrate. I think that's
very
really what
easy
it comes
to
down
digest.
They're very easy to digest. And I do know if I eat that, I immediately start craving all kinds of food. I'll just
Yeah.
I just, it's very easy for me to start binge eating if I start eating that. So,
but you don't do a diet, like you aren't constantly on a diet
really
or
don't.
anything like that. Okay.
Occasionally I'll try something, but no, I don't do well with saying
deprivation.
I don't do well with that. So I try to eat a lot of vegetables. I too try to make sure I get protein, because if you go back and listen to any of our podcast episodes, is how much women over 50 need protein. Everyone seems to be in agreement on that, however you get it. And so I do try to make sure I eat a lot of protein.
Right. And I think it's something that a lot of women over 50 don't even think about protein that way. It seems like it has a lot of calories, but it's really necessary.
Right. We're trying to eat a lot of vegetables, which is good. You also need to make sure you're getting the protein. So a lot of my meals end up being things like some sort of protein, like a chicken breast or seafood, or it doesn't have to be meat, but something, and then a bunch of vegetables. That's usually a great meal. Maybe some beans or something in there too. But
yeah, I love garbanzo beans. So do you ever skip meals, like try to do intermittent fasting? How do you time your meals?
So if you ask me to go out to eat for breakfast, I will say yes every time, because I love to go out for breakfast. But I do not normally wake up hungry, so I'm usually content to have a cup of coffee.
Okay.
And then I will eat after I've been up for a couple of hours. So like right now I'm working at an office, so I haul my breakfast into work. So by the time I get up, I have my coffee, I get dressed, drive to work, so, and then I'll get settled into work, and I'm usually there for, I don't know, an hour. And all of a sudden I'll think, okay, it's time for breakfast. So I tend to eat around 9 o'clock or so.
Gotcha.
Then I'll have a later lunch.
Yeah.
So no, I don't really skip a meal.
Yeah, that makes sense. What about recipes? Do you have a favorite recipe that's kind of your go-to if you're, let's say you've been holidaying and celebrating and you want to scale back?
So here's my quick and easy and basic healthy meal. So I will take greens like kale or something usually kind of that stands up to heat well. Mm-hmm. I'll take a can of beans and maybe a can of diced tomatoes. And I'll mix those together, put the kale in with them, heat them up. I could put some spices on there or whatever. And that is a great meal. Now, if I have it, I might put some sweet potato in there too. Mm-hmm. And then if I need more, I might fry an egg and put an egg on top of that. So I like that. That's like a quick, easy dinner that I like, that feels healthy to me. And after having really gone crazy is probably to make soup. I like a lot of soup. I make a lot of soup.
That's what I like to do too.
You can take broth and throw in a bunch of vegetables and maybe some beans or not, and then some meat. That's one of my favorite things to do.
I love soup too. Sometimes I'll add quinoa because even though it's more of like a pasta, it has protein in it too. So I feel like it's a 2-for-1, What about things that you avoid? Is there anything that, I know there's a lot of different things that you avoid, but can you think of 2 or 3 that people eat without really thinking about it that you tend to avoid that helps you maintain the weight loss?
Yeah, I don't eat Pop-Tarts. Because I would just watch someone eating, they sell Pop-Tarts in the snack thing, and I was just like, I can't believe people are eating these things.
Pop-Tarts, I remember as a kid when they came out, and that just seems like the ultimate processed food, doesn't it?
Well, yes. And, my mother absolutely refused to buy them for us. I still remember feeling so put upon that my mother would not buy Pop-Tarts. Everyone else got to eat Pop-Tarts. Now, I look at people and think, why is everyone eating Pop-Tarts? But they are the ultimate processed food. So I try to not eat a lot of processed foods. I don't eat things that, I don't buy Hamburger Helper. Mm-hmm. That kind of thing. I know. I remember buying that stuff many years ago, and I would not buy that now.
I was reminiscing with my husband the other day about when we were first married, and we would always buy La Choy Chinese food in the can. 2 of those,
I was just talking about
a couple
that.
Dinty Moores, and it was like that was kind of our shopping extravaganza, and we didn't cook. We didn't know what to do, and I just think of how it's evolved over the years.
Right. Maybe you'd cook some noodles to go with that Dinty Moore.
Exactly. Or rice.
So that's the kind of stuff I really don't eat. Everything else I will eat. It doesn't mean I cook it. So the other thing I have now added that I try not to eat is things like soy products, like meat, like fake meat. I really don't want to eat that. So I'll eat soy as in I will eat soy like edamame. I will eat tofu. I will eat miso, which is fermented soy. I'll eat those things.
So you don't drink soy milk?
No, I will not buy soy milk. No. So I hear different things about it. I just don't drink it. I have no problem drinking regular milk, really. I mean, it doesn't bother me. It doesn't appear to bother me. But if I'm going to buy non-dairy milk, I might buy, I used to buy almond milk, but I'm sort of ambivalent on that now. So I've been trying oat milk recently.
Oh, really? I've never even heard of that.
And I like that, yeah. Well, you can now find it in the grocery store, and I figure environmentally, oats are a lot easier on the environment than almonds, and and it's good. So how about you? What's your go-to recipe?
Well, I think of, when I first lost the weight, it was through Weight Watchers, and I was in Weight Watchers for many years trying to lose all the weight that I needed to lose, and I did it slowly. So their point system changed during my tenure with them. But I do remember at one point they made vegetables for 0 points, or most vegetables.
I remember that.
Not the starched potatoes and sweet potatoes. And that's when I started making a soup, or I heard about this soup, and I call it 0 point soup. But I think about it, it's kind of like a couple places where you go to a restaurant and they call it V9 soup or 10 vegetable soup. I just basically put 1 million vegetables in it, but I skip the potatoes. I skip the starchy ones. The main base of the soup is cabbage. I like to dice it all up. But then there's all these other really delicious fresh vegetables in there. I'll make all this soup and put it in the refrigerator and have a bowl of soup before I have my supper, and try to wait like 15 minutes before I eat supper. You know what I mean? So I have soup first, and that satisfies. Because I have a tendency, I think I learned to eat in school where we would have 15 minutes to eat everything down and get back to class, because you stood in line for so long, trying to get down the hall and all. So I don't know. When I was in school, I learned to eat way too fast, and I really have to focus on slowing down, taking time, like almost have courses in my meal, or I'll just wolf it all down and then where can I get more? It's like a Labrador.
Well, eating this soup is a good idea. Well, so there is that whole cabbage soup diet that people do where you make a big pot of soup and then that's all you eat. So
yeah, well, I eat more than that. I'm like you. I don't like to be on a diet constantly. I do. If I start feeling deprived, then that's the opposite in my psyche. So much of it is mental. I find.
I think that's it. I think there's a lot about attitude and knowing what you want to do and what you're willing to do. And what kind of tracking do you do?
Tracking was a huge part of Weight Watchers, and I used a paper tracker when I was with them. I tried using their electronics things, but they kept updating it, and it wasn't matching with my phone for some reason. But then after I hit my goal, and that was about 2013, I found that going to Weight Watchers didn't motivate me, or it didn't work, or I felt awkward because it wasn't meant for the maintaining part, or I felt it wasn't. I had gone to the gym to do some special challenge thing, and one of the people there mentioned an app that I still use to this day, and it's called MyFitnessPal.
Oh, right.
There was another one, too, that they mentioned called Lose It, which is good. And I know you've mentioned Spark People before.
Well, and I like MyFitnessPal, too, but what I found was that because when I started with Spark, it was probably 2007, 2008, something like that.
Okay, so a long time ago.
So I have an incredible amount of data in there, including recipes. Like, you enter in the recipe and then it'll tell you, it breaks it down by macros, how much protein, how much carbs, how many calories, that kind of thing. So it's hard to walk away from that.
Isn't it? And that's, I think, why I like MyFitnessPal so well, because since I stopped going to Weight Watchers, I track my weight in MyFitnessPal. and I have all my recipes in there. The ones that I love to make, my Don't Panic potluck salad, where I chop all these vegetables, and half of my salads on Becoming Ellie's website look like, similar, because I love that salad. It's my go-to.
So do you log your food?
I sometimes log my food. I don't regularly do it, but my breakfasts are almost always the same. My lunches are very similar. It's the dinner that's hard for me to log, because that's usually where there's differences, where I eat, who I'm with, what we're eating. If someone else made it, I hate to ask them every ingredient and how much.
Right.
So
right.
I will say I log my weight for sure in MyFitnessPal, and I am not as consistent as I want to be, but I know when I do log my weight, just the fact that I'm logging it, and I try to log it before it actually goes in my mouth, that really makes me very conscious of what I'm eating and how much I'm eating. The portions, because I hate to put 3 portions, it just seems wrong. But, you want to be accurate. As long as you're going to track, you may as well be accurate. I think tracking the food in is a better way to make sure that the scale matches what I want it to say, than tracking my weight, because it's sort of after the fact, right?
Well, right. So you track your weight and you occasionally track your food.
Yes.
Anything else? Do you do macros, or do you just...
Oh, for a while I was doing macros a lot, and I found that I pretty much eat decent macros without actually tracking it. It wasn't as helpful to me. And with MyFitnessPal, you can switch back and forth between macros and your meals and things pretty quickly and easily. So I like that.
So I weigh myself pretty much every day. I find that useful. I do periodically try to do measurements, like I measure my waist, I measure my hips. If I'm really focused on it, I'll do it maybe once a week. But once a month or so is really useful. A really good way to see what you're doing. Food tracking, I do occasionally. I find it really useful if things aren't going the way I think they should. I find if I log my food, it helps me spot that, well, I really am eating a lot more food than I should be. Maybe I should cut out on these snack bars and protein bars and things.
Well, I find if I am eating nuts, I really have to measure those, because it's so easy to overeat, and there's usually a lot of fat in nuts. I mean, there's protein too, but I shouldn't just eat those as a snack, because it's, I need to measure.
Right. Well, it's the same thing with eating like peanut butter.
Yeah.
I have to be careful with that one.
Yeah, there's something about the nuts that just are really dense, calorie dense.
What role does exercise play in maintaining your weight loss?
I know that 80% of losing weight and keeping it off is the food that you eat, but I really feel like exercise is a huge part of it for me, because I feel better when I don't weigh as much when I'm exercising, and I love the community, being around other people. Exercising, it's very much a social activity for me.
Right.
Plus, I love the endorphins afterwards.
Yes.
So exercise to me is huge. I know they say, you should get, when I say they, it's with the air quotes, 150 minutes of exercise a week. But I know with my age and my metabolism, I need to get more like 50 a day, not 150 a week. Minutes are important to me, whether it's walking or, much more strenuous cardio and lifting weights. And,
right.
I really like to spend more time doing it.
Right.
How about you? I know you really like strength training.
I do. I really like to strength train. I like to feel like I have muscle and that I'm strong. I like that. I enjoy it. And there's also something that I like, the specificness of it, or specificity, or whatever it is. I like to be able to say, last week I did a bicep curl with a 15-pound weight, and this week I can do it with a 17.5-pound weight. Whatever. I like that fact that it's you can see if you are improving or if you're not, because that's the other thing, is that it doesn't take long before, right? A month ago, I could do this with a 15-pound weight, and now I can only do it with a 12 because I haven't been to the gym for 4 weeks.
Yep.
I like that. I like that it's very measurable.
It is. It's very measurable.
So the one thing I feel like is that for a while there, I was really focusing on just running. And I feel like that sort of led me to injury. So I still like the running, but I really feel like it's important to do a mixture of things. I do the strength training. I'm sort of on a lull, I think, with the running right now because of the weather. But
yeah,
working in cardio stuff of some kind, I think, is important because you're right. If I don't do anything, it doesn't take long to start losing it.
Mm-hmm.
I also just heard the last 10 years of life, one of the top reasons for death is an accidental fall.
Yes.
And that the best way to avoid that is to maintain your strength, to maintain your muscle. So I just feel like it's the more, you can't wait until you're 80 years old and say, okay, now I'm going to start building muscle.
Right. Right now's the time.
Yeah. I got to keep.
Right now is the time.
Yeah. The more I can do now, the longer I will have the ability to stay upright.
Right. I forget all the statistics, but you're absolutely right. And having the muscle keeps you upright and moving forward. The balance, the flexibility, the strength, all of those things all work together.
Here, I've been meaning to tell you this, and our listeners, I think, will perhaps like this story too. But so I was at work the other day.
Mm-hmm.
I could hear the sound, and I looked around, and there's this woman. She must be about the same age as I am. I don't know. She's somewhere in her 50s or 60s,
Yeah.
Anyway, she was walking along and she had a box. It wasn't a huge box, but instead of carrying it, she had it on the ground and she was kicking it, pushing it with her foot. So it was
like sliding it along?
Sliding it along. And I looked at her and she said, I'm too old to carry this.
Oh.
So she was pushing it. I saw her.
And what she meant was it was too heavy for her.
I almost said to her without even thinking, would you like me to carry it for you? And then I thought, well, I don't want to be like.
I know.
So she did it. And then I saw her doing the same thing with another box. So it wasn't that heavy of a box. I could tell by it.
Well, the more you do, the more you can do. The less you do, the less you can do. Right?
Right.
You're either going forward or you're going back. And
right. It just sort of distressed me.
It doesn't take long. I know. And it's discouraging when you see someone who's obviously younger than you and says something like that and you realize, wow, what's normal in people's mind.
So you talked about doing exercise, but I know you do both strength training and cardio. You do your bike riding and you do.
Yes. I do group exercise that is they call it trilogy. It's a third strength, a third cardio, and then a lot of ab work, torso kind of things. And I love to do spinning, but I do spinning more this time of year because I really don't want to get my bike out when there's ice because there's no quicker way of going down than, when it's slippery out there, and that kind of defeats the whole purpose. Yeah, so I rely a lot on my gym. I also have weights here at the house and we'll kind of supplement with those, especially when watching some Netflix, and you know how you can binge watch episode after episode?
Yeah.
So I'll take one episode and then when it's over, then I'll do, this set or routine or whatever. Then I'll do another episode, try not to sit there for, 2 hours watching shows. Really, my main exercise, I would say, is going to the gym this time of year for sure. And when it's nice out, if it's running or primarily biking.
What do you wish you had known earlier in your life?
Well, that's a great one. I think processed foods, in 1991, we moved from Rhode Island to Ohio. And it seems to me that that's the point where fast food just took off. It seems like there was a fast food on every corner and lots of pizza places. And coincidentally, I had my second child. Life was extremely hectic because I was working full-time at a pretty stressful job at that point, and I had 2 kids. I didn't realize the whole processed foods, fast food. I was better at cooking, but I still wasn't a great cook, and I wasn't as healthy of a cook as I'd come home from work and start the water immediately for pasta or rice or something. That would be how I would start to cook, is get the pot of the water going. And it took me a long time to really focus more on better nutrition. And it was definitely a process, but I wish it was faster. I mean, I remember Susan Powder saying fat makes you fat. And, she was all pushing sugar. I don't know if anybody else ever followed her or not. She had really short white hair, as I recall. And she only had one before picture. And I remember when Healthy Choice, or was it Healthy Choice? It was the ice cream. Yeah, it was Healthy Choice came out. And I kept thinking, well, this is the Healthy Choice. And I'd be buying that ice cream.
All right. That was when the Snackwell cookies came out too.
Snackwell. Yes. Snackwells. I mean, they had the food marketing. I bought into way too much of that too long. Like I said, it wasn't until I turned 50, which was in 2007, that I really got a huge wake-up call and started learning about all this stuff. And that, that's something that, I've learned so much just through these 50 episodes and talking with different people and learning from you, Jill. I mean, I'm still not where I need to be. It's really a process. It's really a process for sure.
The whole low fat thing that we did for years and decades, it was just crazy.
Well, and the Diet Coke, I always had Diet Coke in my hand. I look back at so many of those pictures and I was always standing there with a Diet Coke. Why I didn't realize that this is not making you thinner. So what do I wish was different? I wish I knew more about nutrition, that I really thought things through better. And, I kind of believed that food pyramid where the bottom was the pasta, the breads, the grains, and now that's like, that's like the thing I want to avoid. And that was the base of the pyramid. What about you? Is there something you could put your finger on that you wish you knew?
I guess I would agree with that. If I could pinpoint anything, it was that whole, when I was in my 40s, my husband had a heart attack and they put him on this, what the American Heart Association said was a good diet, which was a very low fat diet. And he followed it.
Sometimes I feel like they still do that.
Yeah, they may. I don't know.
They still do that?
When I think back on it, so what he did was, because we ate then a lot of grains, a lot of pasta, a lot of.
Yep.
I took him. I made him drink skim milk that he hated, and we both gained a lot of weight. I look at those pictures and I think, how could we
on your heart healthy diet?
On my heart healthy diet, we gained all this weight, and we both looked horrible.
Yeah.
Even things like, I used to eat this margarine stuff, and I remember when they first started talking about trans fats and how bad they were for you. And I remember thinking, well, what do you mean? We've been eating, this is like supposed to be good for us, eating these stick margarines and vegetable shortening and whatever. So
yeah, vegetable shortening, corn oil. It was like,
yeah. That's what I guess I wish I'd known. But everyone probably wishes that. That's not like I could have known it. I listened to what everyone said.
Well, I definitely feel like the world is changing now, and we're getting different ideas about food.
Yes.
I hope it's the right ideas.
Well, so if one thing I sort of observe is that what seems to be happening, and I think this is a good thing, except for people arguing with each other over it, but there's lots of different ways of eating now that people are following. So you have people who are eating vegan, and they're eating low-fat vegan. Right. And then there's people who are doing high-fat vegan. And then there are people who are eating keto, which is really low-carb, high-fat, pretty much. There's just lots of different ways to eat.
The plant-based diet, the Mediterranean diet, all those different ones.
I think maybe people are more open to the idea of trying different things and seeing what works for them. That's a positive. We don't need to beat each other up over someone else eating in a different way. And there is one thing, this isn't like something I knew, but there is one thing I really regret out of all this is that I made my poor husband drink skim milk when he hated it, and all he wanted was regular milk or 2% milk. And I'm very sorry that I made him drink the skim milk.
Well, if you only knew that.
Right, exactly. So I guess, that's what I wish I had known earlier, is that it was okay if he had wanted to drink that
honestly,
milk.
Jill, if that's the worst thing you ever did to him, you can rest easy.
Yeah, I guess. I just feel a little guilty about it, especially when I drank some whole milk the other day, and I thought,
this is what he was talking about.
This just isn't right.
It's like drinking light beer instead of an IPA, right?
Right, yeah. That's not right either.
No, that's not right either. I know. Going back to exercise.
Yeah.
There was one other thing I was going to ask you about tracking. And, we talked a little bit about tracking your weight and tracking your food, but what about tracking your exercise? Do you do that? And if so, how do you do that?
So I used to do it a lot. Haven't been doing it so much, but I used to just keep a paper log at the gym and I would pull it out when I would do my exercises because, as I said, I like knowing that I have improved on something. So it really is much better if I could track it, but I really have not been. I do track like running and those things in my Fitbit. I went running, or I'll log it as bicycling, or if I go to my boot camp class, that all shows up in Fitbit. But I don't track my reps and weights on my strength training, though I probably should.
I'm wondering if other people do tracking. And I just know when I track my food, how valuable that is for maintaining my weight. And I struggle with tracking exercise. That's one of the reasons why I was asking you about it. Because I used to come home after a boot camp or after a group exercise session where they would do circuit training or know, a variety of things and write down all the different exercises with the idea in mind that I was actually going to do these separately. I don't know where I thought I was. But I had all these tons of little slips of paper with crazy things like donkey kicks and, every minute as many as you can or whatever, EMOMs, all those different funny things. And then I got away from doing that because I realized I'm not going to recreate. I'm going to go do another class where they tell me what to do all the time. So now I am tracking them on one of those little pocket calendars that you can put in your purse. And I just write down what class I went to or how many miles I did, or I went to a yoga class or something like that. But I really don't have a solid thing for tracking my reps, my sets. Think I like to do that a little more than what I have been instead of just writing weight training.
Yeah. So I used to track all of that. I used to write it down, and it really was useful because you could pull it out and say, well, 6 months ago, this is what I was doing.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And then you can look and see, well, am I making progress or am I losing ground? I need to get back to that. So I do log, I do have a record of what I'm doing. I can see, well, I did spinning, or I did running, or I went and did a boot camp class, or I went to yoga, that kind of thing. But I don't have the specifics of
what went on in each thing.
Yeah.
Right. Well, now I want to shift the conversation slightly because I feel like food is a component and exercise is a component, but a big component that a lot of people don't talk about is motivation, inspiration, discipline, your mental focus. And what is it that keeps you motivated to maintain your weight loss? I mean, is there one thing, or is there a combination of things? And how do you keep yourself focused on that?
Well, I like the feeling of being in good physical condition. So it's something that, I guess, one, I like it. And that's another thing that I learned from the podcast is when we talked to the different personal trainers, many of them all said, find something you like to do and do it.
Yeah.
So I think that's really good advice, because if you're trying to say, if you're saying, I want to be in shape, it's like saying you're going to eliminate certain kinds of food groups. If that's what you like to eat,
right?
Life is not meant to be torturous.
So forget the skim milk.
Yeah, so don't do that.
If you don't like skim milk, don't eat skim milk.
Yes, learn from me. Drink the regular milk. So I guess that's part of it, is I like doing what I do. But even so, you're right. It's very easy at times to say, you know what, I'd rather sit and watch Netflix than go work out. So it's important to me. So I figure out how to get it done, which might be making an appointment or signing up for a class, or, and part of that is just discipline. If every Saturday morning I go to boot camp class unless I'm out of town or something. But if I'm here, and then that's a given.
Yep.
I don't even really think about it. I mean, sometimes I might think, well, I'd rather not go, but I just get up and go because that's what I do.
Yeah.
I think that's part of it, is just making things routine. It's your schedule. It's what you do.
So you find that motivation for exercise is not an issue, really. It's more of a habit.
Yeah, I guess. Though I do things like, I'll sign up for a race so that I will feel like I have to train for it.
Right, because you have a deadline that's looming that you really feel like, I got to get ready.
Right. So there is that part. Like, I have to say, I think it's with the winter and everything. I have been struggling with feeling motivated to do some of the things that I normally would be doing.
Because it's dark so early?
I guess that must be it.
But because it's dark when you get home and dark when you get up.
Yeah, yes. So last year, I did the indoor triathlon, and...
Oh, that's right.
And that's in March. And I was like, I don't really want to sign up for that. I don't feel like doing it. And then I thought, wait a minute, if I sign up for it, then I will force myself to get in the pool and swim some, and it'll get me on a bike to pedal some. Mm-hmm. So I think I'm going to have to sign up for it. Motivation is a problem at times.
Well, yeah, I know sometimes I'm not as motivated as I could be, but I also think of my later years and realize that what I'm doing right now is really going to, because I see women at the gym that are in their later years. I mean, they're in their 80s. As I was leaving, I saw this woman coming in. She's in her 90s. She does the track with her walker. And I mean, she's in there going. And I don't know for sure, but I think she's in her 90s. Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah.
It really, to have somebody that's still able to keep moving to the extent that she can move. I know that I want to stay mobile throughout my life.
So that's what I was saying earlier.
Mm-hmm.
So that is a motivating thing. So this is so there is vanity, and I am going to my son's wedding later this year, and it's going to be a beach wedding. And I've already been thinking about the fact that I'm going to be like in a sleeveless dress or whatever. And
oh yeah,
I have to have good looking arms. I have to really focus on this upper body strength stuff, because I really do not want to have pictures taken with flabby arms.
Yep. Well, weddings and dresses and, those kind of deadlines, that makes a difference. It definitely does.
Yeah, so those things are motivating too. Though there is the health and there is the long-term things, but there's also those short-term of, so we're back to, oh my goodness, that there's going to be a photographer. And what motivated me to start losing weight? A photograph.
Well, I know at one point I was walking by, not window shopping, but I just walked past a storefront window and saw a reflection, and I didn't know that was me. I'm talking years ago, but that was kind of a wake-up call too, because when you don't recognize yourself, something's wrong. And then it took me a long time to get the idea that I'm not big anymore. My mental image of myself was slow to change, both one direction and then the other direction. Still grabbing the extra large, or plus clothing off the rack to go try it on without realizing, wait, I'm not in that size anymore.
But that's the opposite of what I was saying, because I clearly did not realize how much weight I had gained until I saw that picture on the website and thought, oh my, I look horrible. I mean, I obviously had known I'd gained some weight, but I didn't know quite how. So it wasn't just, I don't want to make it sound like it's just that I had a lot of extra weight, but I just didn't look healthy. I looked bloated and not good. But I didn't know it until I saw the picture. Outside evidence.
Well, it does feel really great to be feeling great, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
To feel strong.
Yes.
To be able to do things that you want to do, activities and things like that, without having to think, oh my gosh, can I do that? It's good. It's really good.
It is good. Now that we've had 50 episodes of our podcast, is there anything that you feel like you've learned specifically from doing this?
I would say that one thing I have learned, because we've talked to so many different people with different types of exercise habits and different types of eating, what's right for them, what they feel is right for other people, that there's a lot of variety out there, and you have to figure it out for yourself, what's going to work for you.
Yes.
There's not just one way.
Right.
You know?
I think that's what I was saying earlier about eating, and I think that's true for fitness and lots of things.
Sure.
There's room for lots of different ways of doing it. That's the one thing that I think I have really noticed is the wide range of amazing things that women over 50 are doing that's just mind-boggling. Like, doing these lengthy hikes and racing and
triathlons.
Yeah, just
right.
Really incredible.
Or tap dancing.
Yeah.
Like, there's lots of ways of staying fit, and it doesn't have to fit in this, it doesn't have to go to a gym. Although I personally love going to the gym. So
I do too, but
yeah,
not everyone does. So that's good. I'd like to know what our listeners think about how they manage to keep themselves fit and strong, or what they're doing on their journey towards that.
Yep. And what their motivation is, how they track, what they eat, if there's something specific. I'm still working on the idea of getting the quote unquote perfect tracker.
Yes.
Whether it's eating or measuring weight or measuring measurements, keeping track of all the doctor statistics, year over year, just to see.
Yes.
There's so many ways of doing things.
Yes.
So I'm wondering, maybe the listeners could contact us with their thoughts about what we've discussed today.
Yes, they could leave us a message on the website, becomingellie.com, or on our Facebook page.
Or even through the voicemail we have set up. It's area code 330-970-6662, and it's basically voicemail.
Oh, that'd be great. I would love to hear from you.
Yeah.
Well, also, I just want to remind people that we do have a Facebook group. So if you are interested in participating in that, please join us there.
That's right. Love to hear from you. So I'm looking forward to next time as well on the podcast.
I am too.
All right. Well, we'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening. See you next time. Bye.
Bye-bye.